depends what you're at, and you get rejected, you work instead of having cocktail.
Lavish ones. You know, some of the solutions
Considered to be the or, even though, you know, you set up a neighborhood killed so easily. So that's very important.
Retirement. It isn't something to start thinking about in your 50s or 60s. You need to do it right now and plan decades earlier. Here to share some insight on that is financial advisor Ken Mahoney, who's penned a new book called A New Way to Look at Retirement, Your GPS for Retirement. Does that mean got to prepare soon?
Got to prepare soon. Exactly. You know, plug in that little GPS of yours
exactly.
and get you there.
Exactly. Let's talk about what do you do in each of these decades? You're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. Each one requires a different
Absolutely.
scenario.
You know, the 20s and 30s to me is almost like a wasted couple decades as far as planning for retirement. Because quite frankly, you know, we're in that mode of going out with friends and so forth. Yeah, it's the best time to put money away. This is before having kids, or before having a mortgage. So you're 25 years old, you may be living at home. What a great time to sock away money. To me, it's really a wasted opportunity because
and we don't think about it.
We don't think about it. Now we're in our 40s and 50s, raising a family. Okay, all the expenses about raising a family, having a mortgage. It gets a little bit difficult then. And then it gets easier thereafter because then you're in the higher income years at that point. You may have received an inheritance, and by then hopefully your college of payments have gone through, the graduate and so forth, and the mortgage hopefully is diminished. So you know, we have a couple sweet spots when we try to put money away for retirement. Those earlier years, and then again those later years.
So 20s and 30s perhaps when you're starting to really generate some good income.
Yeah, and a little bit at a time. You know, it's so funny for most people to say, what's the difference putting 2% a year in? I mean, that's not going to make a difference. You know what? They should see the other side of it. I work with people as a financial planner. They come to me, they're 65 years old, and they say, I can't believe I have $500,000 in my 401k plan. A little bit at a time, 2 and 3%, you know, each month going in, compounding over time, and they have this huge lump sum.
And so it makes a difference just to start with
Yeah,
just
a little bit at a time. And again, that's a problem we have as investors. We always want to think big. You know, we want to throw that bomb down the field and try to catch it. And the problem is that doesn't usually work.
Right.
What happens a little bit at a time.
Now, on the flip side, if you have people in their 50s that haven't really saved and are now saying, well, I've got to do something because in the next 15 years or 20 years, if I live that long, I'm going to have some money banked.
Right.
How do you advise those folks?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to look at it. Most people, when they look at how much money they make and how much they spend, they look at this as a little sliver of savings, right? Yeah, we could try to do things to raise our income, start a side business, doing things on the side to try to increase our income and give us more time for savings. You know, we're not retiring at 62 like our grandparents did.
Right.
Thankfully. Thankfully, we're living longer, healthier lives. So that also means when you start looking down the road, don't look at 62 or 65 line in the sand, I'm finished. If we love what we do, we can do it into our 70s and 80s. Heck, I have a client, 89 years old. He's still practicing law.
Wow.
Again, granted, he's not slugging it out 9 to 5, 5 days a week, but he's doing it a couple of days a week, bringing in some income, enjoy what he does.
And there are also ways to share the expertise you've developed over all those years in maybe tutoring or doing some other things.
Right, there's so many things you can do there. So again, in your 50s and 60s, you can look at down the road, but you can do things right now. And the way to look at it right now, try to do things that create some more income for yourself.
Now, when you talk about investing that money, are we talking? I mean, are there strategies for younger people versus older people? Are you urging, well, let's take a very low-key approach to it?
Yeah, you know, we can learn a lot from this Sunday's Super Bowl, believe it or not, when it comes to investing. Okay, the teams that made it here were the teams that didn't get penalized a lot. You know, they're disciplined, they had a great strategy. Investors can do the same. Remember the Joe Montana days? Okay, they surgically marched down the field, disciplined, a little bit at a time. A dump off to Jerry Rice, a hand off to Roger Craig. Okay, investors always want to come at the 20-yard line, throw that bomb into a penny stock or something, hit it big, and what happens? They usually drop the pass, right? Or intercept the run back for 6 points. Okay, so think about the Joe Montana days of surgically going down the field, a mutual fund, some annuities, some bonds, a little bit at a time, and compound that over time. Can really give you a great retirement.
Versus if you're on the again on the older end, you've got to take a more aggressive approach.
No, again, you're on the older end. If you haven't saved enough, yeah, you have to be a little bit more aggressive to try to get those gains back for the years that you missed. Not a strategy I recommend, but sometimes you have to do that. But when you get closer to it, I give the analogy: when you're near the putting green, you don't need to hit it backwards on the fairway. You know, let's put it in the hole.
You know, when we talk to younger people about, you know, one of the first things you get back is, well, I don't make enough money to save.
Right.
But in fact, there are little things you can do. Maybe it's the Starbucks you do 2 or 3 times a week that you don't.
It all adds up, doesn't it? You know, a lot of times I tell people at least once a year, take an inventory, go through your credit cards, okay, and see really what you use. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of times we spend money on the health clubs, right? $110 a month, and I'll say to somebody, how often do you go there? I never go there. Okay, that's one thing. Again, if you're using it, by all means, keep that.
Sure.
I mean, it's good for your body, good for your health, good for your mind. But if you're not using it, and then we start going through some of these credit cards, you realize there's a whole bunch of things we're paying for that we're not using, and that's a good start also.
Does that also start with the type of interest rates you're paying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of people who have 7, 8, 9% credit card, and yet they have a whole bunch of money in the bank, and the banks are paying 0.2, 0.5%. Doesn't make sense. Pay down those credit card debts when you can.
Okay, so a lot of good advice. It's in the book, A GPS for Your Retirement, A New Way to Look at Retirement. And it has their Peace of Mind Boulevard.
Well, Brian, we hope to bring you the Peace of Mind Boulevard one of these days.
All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us. We'll look to have some more discussions again soon.
Great. Thank you, Brian.